Happy Easter. Happy Easter. Welcome. Welcome to Pass-A-Grille Beach Community Church, United Church of Christ, where we always like to say, no matter who you are or where you are on life's journey, you are welcome here. For those of you who are worshiping with us from your homes and you're streaming us in, a warm welcome and a happy Easter to you as well. This is a day that I have to tell you, I'm so glad it's here. And it's almost over. And some people came up to me after the other services to congratulate me for the day. And I have to tell you that this is a day where the credit goes to so many people. I want to thank the choir, and I want to thank Dale Williams for their participation in this service. It would not be the service it is today without them. I want to thank all the ushers and Beverly Jackson and the many different people who helped put this together, and all the volunteers that in one form or another helped decorate a cross, put it in its place, all the chairs, everything. This is a day that is owned by so many of us. It is a day that belongs not to one person, not to any one church. It belongs to the whole community. And so let us rejoice on this Easter day. And so let me take you back decades in your life. For some of you, for some others, it just might be your present reality. When you were in middle school, or maybe you're old enough for it to have been junior high, you may have read a delightful novel called The Secret Garden, written by Frances Burnett. Anybody remember that novel? Anybody read The Secret Garden? It's just an amazing one. And if you haven't, go out, order it from Amazon, buy it at the store. It is geared for a young audience. It is geared for people who are entering into adolescence. And it's about a girl right there at the edge of adolescence who discovers a door that leads to a secret garden. And when she opens the door, one that was hidden from plain sight, she sees this beautiful and almost magical garden that is available to her. And the metaphor is very obvious. This girl's about to enter into this flourishing aspect of her life. But for us today, and for me in particular, I remember this, and it stirs up a different thought, stirs up a different feeling. On a day like today, I invite you to find that door that is hidden from plain sight, a door that may lead to a beautiful magical garden. It's a door that was created by Easter, and I want you to open it. That's a door that is for everyone. It's a door for those of us who have been believers for a very long time. We need Easter. It's a door that's for those of us who are at the edge of believing, but not quite there. We need Easter. It's a door for those of us who are running away from institutionalized religion. We too need Easter. Won't you please pray with me? May the words from my mouth and the meditation of all of our hearts be acceptable to you, O God, our rock and our Redeemer. Amen. Grace and peace be with you on this day. All right, I've got a marketing question for you. Have you wondered how products are packaged in such a way that they become so appealing as you are walking down the supermarket aisle that regardless of what's in the content of that product, you have to reach out and pick it up? That is effective marketing. People in corporate rooms are deciding how a product is to be packaged, if it's to be green or blue, if it has a little dog or maybe even a little cat, if it's to say organic or maybe to say all natural. Corporations know that how the product is presented is actually more important than the content itself. And they wish that you do not read the label to see what's in it. Ultimately, it's style over substance. Not for us on a day like today. Easter is all about substance. Easter is all about the content. But let's talk about one of those products that we buy with frequency. Soap. It used to be, and I'm dating myself here, that soap was just a simple white bar that was there, and it was used by everyone. Grandma, my brother, when I came in dirty from soccer practice, people who just came over, everybody used the same bar of soap. Now, we've got soap that's like specialized. There's a soap for him, there's a soap for her. And there's a soap for this type of thing, there's a soap for that type of thing. And you start reading about the soap, and I have to ask myself, it's all the same, isn't it? It's meant to get rid of dirt, grease, and grime. Several years ago, I was supervising a group of kids that were at a car wash. And I went ahead and I brought a bottle of dishwashing soap to squirt in their buckets. And one of the other dads protested and said, "Hey, you can't use that soap on cars." And I said, "Why not?" And he said, "Well, it's for dishes." "Yeah, so?" And he goes, "Well, you have to use this kind of soap." And he went and he pulled out a bottle that had a picture of a racing car and this very sexy woman wearing short shorts washing the car. And I said, "Now I know why you bought that bottle." Yeah, the dad fell for the marketing scheme. He wasn't looking at the label in particular, was he? But the thing is I can't really judge him because we all do it. It's become so pervasive that we all fall to marketing. And as a matter of fact, many of us just no longer care. We know it's happening. We know they're manipulating us as it's happening right there before us, and we just go right on along. Until every once in a while you stop and you ask the question, why does my wife's soap come in a beautiful pink bottle with a graphic of flowers and misty water, while my bottle is colored this gunmetal gray? It just makes me feel like, ugh. And then why did she get to smell like springtime and I get to smell like potpourri at a gun shop? You know what potpourri at a gun shop is, right? It's just a little bowl of bullets. You pass by and touch it. Now, why should I buy soap that's for men? Why should my wife buy soap for women? What is it if one day we were to switch? Would all of a sudden my masculinity be any less or her femininity be any less? What if all of a sudden I wanted to smell like wildflowers? Now, back when we were kids, back when my kids were young and I was a young dad, I would secretly give them a bath with dog shampoo. And when they were teenagers, I would refill their bottles with Hart's flea and tick shampoo. It's true. It's true. I was certain they were picking up all sorts of bugs at school, and that was going to be the remedy. I wasn't going to spend any money at a clinic. I wasn't going to take a day off of work to see how they're going to de-lice my son. This should do it. And so years later, when my son Carlos was in The Wizard of Oz and he had been chosen to play the part of Toto, I had to wonder if his shiny coat had anything to do with it. So this is all indicative of how times have changed. I know a lot of parents out there are listening to what I just said and they said, I can't believe. But dog shampoo has this oatmeal scent to it. It's actually rather nice. Times are changing. And some say the times are changing for the better. But you've heard that familiar adage, I know, time and time again, the more things change, the more they stay the same. Which begs the age-old question, why? Well, the answer is very simple. The underlying currents are still there. The currents that have been around for generations, the currents that created conditions in 50, 100 years ago are still with us today. And these are currents that often swoop us up when we're young, and we don't even know that we've been in them for so long that we end up thinking this is the only option. This is how everybody does everything. And so I should do it this way too. One of the common testimonies offered during our open and affirming process came from members of the LGBTQ community who grew up in a homophobic culture. And they tried doing what everybody else was doing. They tried to conform and repress their sexual orientation from everyone. But eventually they knew they had to get out. Eventually they had to come out, or else they would not live much longer. It was a matter of life or death. Most members of that community give credit to a loving person in their life who told them that they were loved by God regardless of whom they wanted to love. They met an individual who inspired them to become the best version of themselves, regardless of what society, and yes, even the church, was pushing. And those were people. Those were people who changed the world one life at a time. Now, they were normal, everyday people like you and me. But yet there was something special about them. Something that we recognize, that not everybody steps forward in someone else's time of need. Times have changed, and one of the newer ways to understand God is to talk about the universe instead of God. My oldest daughter, mind you, her father's a pastor, said to me, "Dad, all you need to do is put it out there. Put it out there to the universe, and the universe will respond." And I have to go, "Really? Okay." She reminded me of a biblical lesson. Knock and the door shall open, ask and you shall receive. And so I smiled at my daughter who was having a moment of wisdom, and I said, "You know what, sounds like a good idea. I'll try it." The newer generation speaks about the universe, and the older ones speak about the spirit, but it's all the same. One is synonymous with the other. Being in sync with the universe is the same as being in sync with the spirit. There have been cliches in our culture that give us in our language idioms with the same educational balance. Things like when we read the writing on the wall, or sometimes when you see the winds of change, or you may even have people say to you that you got to flow with it, right? All that is to say that we are in sync with the Spirit of God, of the living God. More importantly, if you're going to be in sync, you have to surrender. We have to surrender ourselves to the Spirit. And that too is a biblical lesson from the Lord's Prayer, "Thy kingdom come, thy will be done." So I have to ask you, are you in sync with the Spirit? Maybe you know someone who is a yoga teacher, maybe a healer, doctor, a teacher, or a midwife, an avid student of the Scriptures, a priest, rabbi, or pastor, or maybe someone who is completely unknown, and yet you could tell by the way they walk. People who are in sync with the Spirit, you know that we all recognize each other. The church is our marina. Meditation is our beach. Faith is our vessel. And service is the sail that we use to capture the breeze of love. People in sync with the Spirit know how to flow with the current of the Spirit. And I have a name for them. I call them spirit riders. You watch, that's going to be a cartoon one of these days. But it was in Miami around the year 2000 when I met a modern-day mystic, a spirit rider herself, a woman by the name of Eloise. And Eloise was in her late 60s. She had bright silver hair and a large, beautiful smile, and I was but a young pastor, very green behind the ears. And she would sit and contemplate. I could see Eloise liked to observe people and observe them intently. And I was fortunate enough to be graced by her insight. Several years later, I met Jack Lieberman, a Jewish activist who fought for the immigration rights of Haitian refugees. He was about 25 years older than me, and when he was in the pursuit of justice, when he was in the pursuit of righteousness, he had more energy than an 18-year-old. More importantly, Jack didn't focus on the differences that separate us. Instead, he chose to focus on that which brings us all together. What is it that we have in common? Our similarities. And it was from him that I learned the Jewish and Hebrew phrase, tikkun olam, the mandate to repair the world. And repair the world we must because it is so broken. Today, both Jack and Eloise are no longer with us. They have passed away. but the lessons I learned from them remain. At times I think of Jack when I have to advocate for the rights of those who have been abused, those who are vulnerable and less fortunate. And I'm reminded of Eloise when I contemplate the energies that move among us. Both Jack and Eloise were spirit riders. They recognized the currents in our society, and they knew how not to be ruled by those currents. Now, what kind of currents am I referring to? I'll go ahead and I'll mention two. Let's begin with the most obvious and prevalent current, the current of competition. We've all heard that competition is good, especially in the marketplace. But those who ride that current for too long will eventually become people who value me over us. This current feeds the notion that my wants and rights are more important than yours. It pits me against you. It pushes me to believe that being right is more important than being in relationship. Another current is the one of ideology. People ride this current all the time, memorizing the doctrines and principles of an ideology, and sometimes it is at the expense of our common sense. If this current grows unchecked, the people stop using their rational mind, they stop questioning authority, and they become blind. Blind promoters of a concept, blind followers of a leader. This past Tuesday, we saw both currents swirl around each other and create a whirlpool of ideology and competition in New York City. Did you see it in the news? Former President Donald Trump was being arraigned, and half of New York City was there to celebrate. Now, regardless of our political views, we have to admit that much of the behavior that was caught on camera was simply not right. It might be funny. It might make for a good joke. And it probably feels good. I know that as I was watching the TV, I caught myself smiling. And I had to say, Guillermo, stop it. Why are you smiling? Why? Why does it feel good to see a certain congresswoman chased out of town? And why does it feel good to see a door not held open? From where did this good feeling come from? Now, don't tell me that it comes because justice is being served. No, something deeper is happening. There's a current tugging at us. There's a current pulling us in. And it's just as insidious as any marketing ploy to sell us pink bottles of soap. Mind you, I'm not going to tell you to change your political views. All I'm saying is be aware. Be aware of those currents that want to sweep us up and turn us against each other. Be aware of those currents that lead to mob mentality, because that's exactly what we had in New York City on Tuesday. And it's a mentality that is not difficult to create. Unless, of course, we rise above the currents. Today's scripture reading is about the resurrected Jesus not being in the tomb. The narrative in all four Gospels is consistent. The women go to the tomb and they find it empty. There are differences on how the Gospels describe the appearance of the risen Jesus. There are differences on where the angels are located. But regardless of the details, they all agree that Jesus came back to life and was no longer in the tomb. The passage we read this morning is the most elaborate of the four, and it happens to be my favorite. I love it. I love it because it gives Mary Magdalene the leading role. And it describes the most believable response to a miracle. Watching Mary Magdalene and her tears makes me wonder, how would I react had I been there? What would I have asked the gardener? More importantly, would I have had the open heart, the open mind, and the open soul to see that Jesus was standing right there? This is a crucial exercise of looking in the mirror and evaluating our own faith. Do we recognize the miracles today, large or small? Would we recognize Jesus if he came and stood before us? Or would we crucify him all over again? For those of us who are familiar with the story of the Passion, we know that on Good Friday the crowds were shouting, "Crucify him, crucify him." The sad reality is that many of those people were the same people that on Palm Sunday were greeting Jesus with palm fronds and waving them and singing, "Blessed is he who comes in the name of the Lord, Hosanna in the highest." How sad that in the course of 6 days, the people were moved from joyful celebration to acclamations of violence. Now, we would like to think that that was then and this is now. We would like to think that, no, we're very different today. That's not me. That's those people back then. After all, today we are just so evolved. We're so civilized. But after watching the news on Tuesday, I have to ask, are we? Have we? I actually don't see much difference. In the study of ethics, it's more important to know why and how you reach a decision than the decision itself. It's not the decision that matters, it's how you get there. What are the factors that you're considering and evaluating? Where are the pros and cons? And ethically, how are you going to reach that goal? And regardless of the decision, whether it's to get married, or whether it's to make a lot of money, or whether it is to retire, how you do it matters more than the action itself. Now, Jesus had a choice on Maundy, Thursday. Jesus had a choice to actually run for the hills. He could have escaped everything. But Jesus went ahead and decided to face it, face his oppressor, face the people. This is actually the highest level of ethics. The courage it takes to stand before those who are going to commit a wrong. And of all the ways that Jesus could have faced the temple guards and the Roman Empire, he chose to face his oppressors in a non-violent way. And when he was up there on the cross, consider how he behaved. He didn't say, you did this to me, and I'm going to come back and get you. No. He went ahead and did not hate his enemy. He did not hate those who were brutally flogging him. He went ahead and even said, "Father, please forgive them, for they do not know what they are doing." This is a man who is riding a different current. He is riding the Spirit of the living God. And that gives us a model. A model is actually one that many of us are not going to be able to emulate. It's a hard one. So let's bring this home. Let's look in the mirror and do a self-analysis. What current are we riding? How easy is it to get pulled into an us versus them? How easy is it to enter a mentality of I am right and you are wrong? Are we following what feels good, our emotions, at the expense of principles? Have we surrendered to a current that pushes us to believe that the wants of one individual are more important than doing the right thing? Some of you know that the church is not exempt from the currents of life. Some of you know that we have been caught in a current ourselves, and we're having a hard time pulling out of it. It's dragging us down, and it's causing tensions among us. Some of us have fallen to the sin of pride, thinking that my way is the only way. The book of Proverbs tells us pride comes before the fall. For the purposes of this sermon, I will modify the proverb to pride prevents us from moving with the Spirit. We become the rock that won't move We become the stone that won't be rolled. We become the obstacle that keeps Jesus in the tomb. We become that which prevents Easter from happening in our own very lives. And we seek to keep the tomb covered. That is the sin of pride. But that is not what Easter is about. What exactly is Easter about? After all this time, after over 2,000 years have passed, what does it mean for us today that Jesus would resurrect on the third day? Did Jesus walk out of that tomb so we can continue to get our way, have our wants and desires fulfilled at the cost of others? Is that what the resurrection means? That we become people who value the destination over the journey, outcome over process? No, I don't think so. As a matter of fact, I know so. On that first Easter, when the stone was rolled away from the tomb, it was more than just an uncovering of a tomb. It was the opening of a new door. And when that tomb was opened, the door of Easter was revealed. It's a door that's meant to be opened. It's a door that's meant to be walked through. So go ahead, step through that Easter door. Stick your head in, just like the disciples did. And I want you to see the most beautiful garden, a garden that is laid out for all of us. The thing is, a lot of people rely on the pastor for that to happen. And here is a difficult truth for some people. I cannot open that door for you. The church cannot open it for you. Only you can. And I'm here to tell you that the door is real. It's not a marketing ploy. It is not something made up by people in a boardroom. It exists. This is not a metaphor, and this is not a preacher taking a homiletic leap. Scriptures say that Jesus rose on the third day so that we might have new life. And that new life is possible today. That new life is possible right now, at this moment. If your heart is broken and it seems like nothing can mend it, open the Easter door. Let the winds of the Spirit blow into your life. If you've lost hope in humanity because the news keeps reporting about an endless war in Ukraine, about local governments banning books, or God forbid, should there be another school shooting somewhere in our nation, open the Easter door. Let the winds of hope blow through your life and become the person that refuses to give in to the bad news. Become the person that only sees the good in the world and the good in all people. And if you are angry and hurt because you think a terrible injustice has occurred, know that the Easter door is waiting for you too. Don't let anger, don't let resentment, don't let all those negative feelings keep that door closed. Open it. Catch the Spirit and know that this church and our faith in the risen Christ will get us through this. We may not understand what happened. We may not know why, but we can believe that the Spirit of God is in all of it. The Spirit of God is through and through, working through it. So open the Easter door and ride that Spirit that flows through it. Fight for the rights of those who have been abused. Contemplate the presence of God all around us. Recognize the current, especially those currents that are trying to get us to behave in manners that are not deserving of our Christian faith, not deserving of our church standing. And in order to do that, we need to begin loving and stop the hating. We need to begin hugging and stop the finger pointing. We need to begin dialoguing honestly and genuinely with each other and stop the misinformation. The risen Christ has been liberated from the cross, and it's a liberation that we could have too. We could be free from all that drags us down, free from the despair that keeps us from rejoicing and claiming the Easter Christ as ours. The stone has been rolled, and a new possibility is there for all of us. Easter, catch the Spirit and ride it. Amen.